Hi everyone, this is Callie. Thanks so much for joining me today for a fun ink blended card, and we're going to be doing some foiling. So let's get started here. I'm going to start by stamping my image. That glass white mat that you see in the background there is new from Simon Says Stamp, and we're going to be showcasing that today. It's a magnetic glass board, so it's definitely unique and fun to use and very easy for ink blended projects if you want to hold things down. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit here. Like I said, I'm going to be stamping and embossing my image. When I ink blend, I like to emboss my image because I want that black outline to stay nice and crisp. If you have VersaFine Clear Black ink or VersaFine Onyx Black ink, those are great black inks for embossing using a clear embossing powder. So that's what I'm going to apply now over my ink. And then we'll heat set it so that we can start our ink blending on these flowers. So this is the Pinkfresh Studio Lush Peonies stamp set that I'm embossing now, and the stencil set that coordinates with this stamp set is a 5-piece set, and each stencil is labeled for you, so I'm just going to be working in order today. I'm going to put my first stencil over my image and line it up, and you'll see here this glass media mat is great for this because I can use some bar magnets and hold down my projects. I've seen other crafters butt up their paper and the stencil into a misty corner or use a waffle flower mat, and that's great if you have a no-line ink blending project, but since I stamped before, there's no way for me to actually butt it up and make everything align perfectly. So having a glass media mat or a magnetic surface to hold down my project with some magnets is awesome, and it makes it so easy to clean up if you like to ink blend and like to dab off some of that ink onto a work surface. I like to use the back of my ink pad, but if you had to ink blend off of a surface onto the paper, then this would be super easy to clean as well. I'm using my Positively Everything tool to hold my ink pads in place. Everything is non-slip and wonderful. I have my left hand on the project there, and I think that's mostly out of habit. I'm not really holding it down too tight, and I'm using a pretty light grip on my blending brushes today too because I wanted my ink blends to be really soft. So the first color that I used was Passion Fruit to add that light layer of pink to all of my blooms. Now I'm introducing some yellow with this sweet mustard color, and I'm strategically only putting it at the center of the flowers that I can see behind the stencil. I didn't want all of my flowers or the smaller blooms to be yellow. So I'm going to use another pink. I'm going to use Bubble Gum, and we're going to ink blend those little smaller flowers with a different shade of pink. Okay, so moving on to stencil number 3 now, we're going to be working on the larger blooms again, and we're just going to add some shaded lines and colors. There are clusters of smaller blooms on this, so I'm pulling out the bubble gum again just to get that different shade of pink on those smaller flowers once again to match the other ones that I ink blended as well. You can definitely have 2 colors of smaller blooms. I just decided that I wanted them to all be the same. And then on the larger peonies, I am using some Candy Violet to add some purple. You can definitely use a darker pink, and Pinkfresh Studios does group their inks in families of 4. And I just decided to use a purple because sometimes I like to change it up a little bit and give it a little bit more interest. So I thought the purple was a nice contrast to the lighter pink background of the peonies. Now I'm moving on to stencil number 4, and we are going to ink blend a light shade of green to the back of all of the leaves. And then the 5th is where we add the darker color to add some shading and interest to the rest of it. So that lighter color was Grassy Knoll, and for the darker shade, I'm going to be using some olive ink and ink blending into those tiny nooks and crannies to give it a bit more interest. And that's what I love about these stencils. I mean, I could have spent an hour and a half coloring this entire image, but with the stencils, it just makes it so much easier to add color, and your projects don't feel as time consuming, and you get a beautiful result. Okay, so now that we're done with the ink blending process, I'm just going to use the coordinating die here to die cut our image. And then we can set that aside and start working on some foiling for our background and our sentiment as well. I have my Spellbinders Glimmer Hot Foil machine here. I've just turned it on. And as soon as the platform is ready, we can start our foiling process. But while it's heating up here, I'm going to go ahead and place the Abstract Triangles hot foil plate onto that heating platform. It doesn't affect your foiling process in any way, it's just warming up, so that's totally okay. And while we wait for our platform to get ready and warm up, I'm just going to trim some of my foil to get it ready for the foiling using this trimmer from Spellbinders. You can definitely use scissors as well. I just like to be able to cut a straight line and not waste any hot foil. So I've cut it down to size to fit perfectly over our hot foil plate. The machine is not ready yet, but I can go ahead and build my sandwich if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and put my cardstock over that and let it all warm up together. I feel like that helps it produce a better result. And now that the platform is ready, I'm going to hit that timer button. And really, if you didn't have all of this stuff sitting on the Glimmer Hot Foil surface already, this timer would really help make sure that your plates are warm enough and everything is good to go. I'm going to place the Glimmer Hot Foil plates on top of that, then run it through my die cutting machine. I run it through back and forth 2 or 3 times. I know some people think that it's not necessary to do that, but I find it helpful for me to get a better impression. So I hot foiled that, and then I'm also hot foiling the Perfect Sentiment set just while I have everything warmed up. And while we're at it, I wanted to show you the solid plate from Pinkfresh Studio as well. I wanted to use the negative from the Abstract Triangles piece so that I can use up that hot foil. Creates a lovely background, and I know that some places and areas on that didn't foil perfectly, but you can strategically put things on top of it and still have a really cool background. So I'm just saving that for another project. For the piece that we are using, I am going to go ahead and trim down the sides after using a Tombow Mono sand eraser to kind of sand away some of those imperfections from the foiling on the sides and around the edges. It's time to put our image over that beautiful background that we just foiled. So I've attached foam adhesive all over the back of our ink blended floral panel just to give it some more dimension. And then I've got my sentiments here that I hot foiled, and I die cut that using the coordinating die, and it die cuts all of the sentiments at once, which is so nice. And we can choose the sentiment that we want. I added a strip of foam adhesive there where I knew there was going to be some open space underneath it for support. Used my T-ruler to line that up. And before attaching it to a card base, I should have done this part after attaching it to a card base, I decided to use some Nuvo glitter drops in honey gold to give some interest and a little bit more life to the flowers in the centers. And that just gives it a little bit of shine, a little bit of raised edges on the center for some texture. And then I'm going to attach it to a card base to finish my card. I hope you enjoyed this project. I had so much fun sharing the process with you. I love ink blending with stencils, and I've been a little hesitant to share the foiling process because sometimes it doesn't always work well for me, but I'm glad it worked well for you today. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video today. Be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. I'm sharing 2 more cards here for you if you'd like to see more. Otherwise, have a great day. Bye, everyone.